Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, October 30th, and I just wanted to start the day by reading something. I'm going to probably get some work done a little bit later, but I've always found that when I start the day well, the rest of the day flows pretty well. So I wanted to do something for the other content creators that are trying to make their way through the new landscape. And offer some words of encouragement and hopefully give a little bit of insight into how I look into spiritual life. And I think we're all at the point now with the economy where it is, where we have to kind of shake down to the root of our foundation. Unfortunately, in America, spirituality is like an afterthought, and what little information we do have is warped by the Jewish community and all the people that have pretty much raped our seminaries and churches. So the reason your suburbs don't act Christian is because they're not Christ-like at all. But that doesn't mean that the creator of the universe can't use a donkey, in this case the Bible, to teach us something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a little bit of Proverbs chapter 6, and maybe we can glean some insight from that in a practical way, and hopefully we can make use of that today. This is Proverbs 6, verse 20, going on to the end of the chapter. I'll be as quick as I can. Let's start at 16. These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, and heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren. My son, keep thy father's commandment, and forsake not the law of thy mother. Bind them continually upon thine heart, and tie them about thy neck. When thou goest, it shall lead thee. When thou sleepest, it shall keep thee. And when thou awakest, it shall talk with thee. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. To keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. For by means of a whorish woman a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. Can a man take fire in his bosom, and his clothes not be burned? Can one go upon hot coals, and his feet not be burned? So he that goeth into his neighbor's wife, whosoever toucheth her shall not be innocent. Men do not despise a thief, if he steal to satisfy his soul when he is hungry. But if he be found, he shall restore sevenfold. He shall give all the substance of his house. But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. For jealousy is the rage of a man, therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will not regard any ransom. Neither will he rest content, though thou givest many gifts. This was written by Solomon, the so-called wisest man or the wisest king that ever lived. Now it's interesting, we're told that when he was a very young man, a young king, he had a dream and he asked, the Lord said, ask anything you want and I'll give it to you. And apparently he was so wise at the time, he asked for wisdom to govern the kingdom properly. And the Lord said, as a result, since you didn't ask for riches, but you asked for something positive like wisdom, I will give you riches and I will give you all the other things. Isn't it interesting how a Jewish God always seems to be able to give money when he wants to? But be that as it may, Proverbs has a lot of good wisdom, even if you just look at it as chicken soup for the soul. That's the way you should look at the Bible going forward, especially an American version of it. You know a tree by the fruit that it bears. Okay, that's just nature. If you observe nature and you see an apple tree, you know that apples are going to come from it. If you see an orange from an apple tree, you know something's probably wrong. That's why we kind of look funny at seedless grapes and seedless watermelons and all those types of things, because we know that's not natural, right? And it's interesting that all the trees we see in our cities now don't bear fruit. There's a reason for that as well, because the God of this world is money. You can't serve two masters. You can either love one or hate the other, or hate one and love the other. And a lot of people in America have chosen profit and money as their God. And they, reap the benefits of that. And unfortunately, sometimes we suffer the brunt of that because we're at their mercy in certain elements and aspects. But that doesn't mean that we have to lose eternally, okay? Especially, you younger kids who get really frustrated with the way things are. I fully empathize with you. Your frustrations are completely warranted, okay? You've been given the short end of the stick from the very beginning. However, the beautiful thing about the rolling wheel of time is that new tools and new gifts will always be given to the younger generation to help push the older generation out, because as you age, you become weaker in your morality, and as you become more wealthy, it insulates you from your conscience. So, these people are going to die, and then they're going to realize there's a judgment afterwards. Now, is it going to be a heaven and hell, book of life judgment? We don't know that, okay? That's above our pay grade. But even if you take on the idea that everybody goes to heaven just at different levels, there will be a hierarchy in heaven based off of our fruit, our works. So, it just stands to reason that a laborer is worthy of his wages. So whatever work you've done here, from the deepest measure of, you've been given a conscience when you were born. That wasn't given to you by a white pastor. It wasn't given to you by a Jewish synagogue of Satan, okay? It wasn't given to you by, CAA or any of these Hollywood agencies. It wasn't given to you by Michael Jordan. It wasn't given to you by ESPN or anybody else like that. It's internal. You know what is right and what is wrong. Some of the nuances and stuff like that, we can get together and discuss that like men, or, whatever you want. But a lot of the basic stuff you already know. So start there, okay? Live at peace with people. Operate by your own conscience, but be honest about what your conscience is telling you. And, I'm not talking to anybody over 60, because you've had 6 decades of the greatest time in American history, with all the entitlements that you claim that we have. After World War II, there was an unprecedented amount of prosperity in America at the expense of everybody else. We put military bases in every other country just to bully everybody. And we got in everybody else's business. And when Gaddafi tried to make Africa somewhat independent, what did we do? Okay? And what's happening to the Texas movement now? Just because we want to rectify the balance a little bit. Now, I'm not claiming to be a hero or anything like that. As a matter of fact, this was kind of a sarcastic joke, to be perfectly honest. Because I recognized very, very early what America didn't want is for me, as a model minority, to stand up and have some sexual autonomy. And that in itself is a metaphor, because you can you can go over my history and see how excited I was about those things. Okay? Now, let's talk about this. My son, keep thy father's commandment and forsake not the law of thy mother. This is not about directly obeying every single order that your mother and father say. Okay? It's about the respect for an office of authority, of protection that has been given for you. So when we say things like blue lives matter, okay, there's no such thing as a blue life. However, there are law enforcement agencies, whether they are slave catchers or not. Okay, that's a different discussion. Talk to Michelle Alexander or whoever is the best resource for that to get the truth about history. Okay, the fact remains is when you have a sheriff in a town or you have a marshal in a town, that is just a measure of structure and authority so that there can be an appropriate chain of command to keep order and keep the peace. Okay, God is a God of order and structure. Now, you can preach or you can act. And if you watch sprinters, if you watch the best sprinters in the world, the best baseball pitchers in the world, the best free throw shooters in the world, three-point shooters, Steph Curry, for example. There is a methodical process, a smooth sequence that allows all of this thing, and things need to happen in a certain order. So that's what this is about, okay? If even the Bible says, if you're operating by the Spirit, you're not under the law. However, when we see an authority figure, like a teacher, a professor, a pastor sometimes, we need to, as far as possible, respect that authority structure, okay? So let's start with there. Let's start using respect as a love language. And I know women don't listen, but, a lot of marriages would be a lot easier if women used respect as a love language rather than words of affirmation, okay? Now, I recognize a lot of you married your last resort because you kind of sexually wasted yourselves in your years of great fertility. So, you have to deal with that within your own conscience. And for the young podcasters, the young manosphere podcasters, tell the truth, but don't get so overwhelmed with your anger that you miss out on your deeper purpose in life. Certainly tell the truth to your cohort. That's very important. Thank you guys. I'm thinking of a few of you specifically, and I don't want to give any names because I want everybody to have access to it. The traditional church is probably not going to be the best resource for you fully to get the practical information you need, just because they're limited. Because a lot of these pastors are put in place because of blackmail, okay? Remember, every church is under a denomination, and that's just another American 501c3, which, like the Red Cross, is a big joke. Just ask Wycliffe Jean, right? So, the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. All that means is that be coachable, okay? When you see a barber, or you see a coach, or you see a male figure that resonates with your conscience, okay? I'm your conscience, right? When you see someone that resonates with that, sit under them, okay? There is great, great value in proactive humility, okay? Especially as a young man, when you have the most testosterone between the ages of, let's say, 12 to 18, if you can find a way to take that ego energy, the kind of ego energy that wants to dick measure and wants to, bust a nut as many times as possible, take all that energy and put it in your mind, put it in your spirit, and point that compass toward a leader that you respect. Now, if I can be of help to you in any way, come on. I've given you every social media resource possible. Don't follow my personal example because I've made a ton of mistakes. But I think even if you interview, my colleagues from the past, by and large, you could probably find a good kind of blueprint to basically stay on the right track. Okay, I tried to be good at least 80% of the time, and I tried to be as forgiving as possible when other people make mistakes. So, and that's worked out pretty well for me. Not financially, because now I'm going up against Jews, obviously, and they can't let anybody else make money. And of course, my father wants to be like one of them, so I can't. What can you do? But even in that situation, when you have these, really treasonous things that happen to you, it's a fraction of what Malcolm X went through, or all these great black leaders that from right down the street. Think of how many people in history didn't have a social media account, but had their entire. Think of Lewis Latimer. Think of think of everybody. All the artists that got. Think of Sam Cooke. Think of all the artists that were stolen from. Think about everybody who Thomas Edison robbed or Elvis Presley robbed. So I'm not the first to be stolen from. And, anytime anybody wants to do anything positive, think about Nipsey Hussle. What happened to Nipsey Hussle? And so these things are par for the course. And so not everybody is called to make that level of sacrifice. But what you can do is, look internally and see, hey, where is my level of faith right now? How can I be as close to my conscience alignment as possible? That is, I think, a very neutral way of looking at the so-called scriptures, okay? Now, I say that still with a lot of respect, okay? So I was born and raised in a very conservative Christian upbringing, a combination of a Pentecostal philosophy and a Brethren philosophy. If you know anything about that, it's basically impossible to be a human being, okay? You have to have the self-deprecation of the Asian community combined with the hyper-conservative nature of the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Christian philosophy. And when you multiply those two, basically they're asking you to be a worm, and it's not feasible or possible. And so what happens then is when you actually compress yourself to that degree, you become like this black hole of cynicism and negativity. And the only way that you can find any kind of value in yourself is by your bank account, because that's the god of this world, Mammon. And if you crawl on your belly long enough for these Jews, they will give you a paycheck, okay? And then they'll keep stacking and stacking on top of it, like Pharaoh did when the Israelites were supposed to make bricks without straw. So that's their way of mocking people that want to live by their conscience. So, that's again par for the course. Now we need to talk about one more thing. To keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. Okay? So I've made jokes about the city girls in the past, and if you remember that, it was kind of funny. But makeup and wigs are not just about physical appearance. Okay? It's about the emotional and spiritual facade that people play. Okay? When white people walk down the street and they do this, and they do that, and when white women do that to you, that is an appearance of humanity. That's an appearance of, I respect you as a human. They don't. And they'd sooner lynch you, or they sooner evict you from your house. The only honest thing they'll ever tell you is when police show up at your door, or you get some type of legal summons. Or after your death, they'll throw you a little certificate or something like that. So how people feel about you, and their whole goal is that they compress your life in such a way that the only thing you can do is beg for the scraps at their table, as if they're Jesus and you're the foreign woman. And we're all foreigners here to this land. You know what I mean? Except the people that were here first. We don't know what happened between 1619 and 1776 or 1492 or whatever. Don't be captivated by the makeup of the suburbs, okay? By the makeup of big houses, by the makeup of Mercedes-Benz vehicles. I've been in love a lot of times, and it hurt every single time I had to leave. It was devastating. But I knew, after you're with a woman, quote unquote, you sit with yourself and it's another version of post-nut clarity. You know what I mean? So what you're really looking for is the validation of your manhood. Okay? That needs to happen before you interact with a woman. You can't get yourself from someone else. Whatever your problems are with your parents, you're not going to be able to fix that with a woman. And if you try to do that, you'll find out it's very, very unsatisfying. And if you poll 100 married men, I think you'll find that what I'm saying is true. And that's not to say that marriage is a bad thing. I think, when it's done right, when it's done properly, it can be a very good thing. But I don't think the American legal system allows that to be the case. I don't think marriage is a partnership. I don't think women have the same authority as men, because I don't have the same authority as Jesus Christ. And I certainly don't have the same authority as white Jesus. Certainly not in America. So if I'm not Jesus' partner, you're not my partner. If I have to obey Jesus, you have to obey me. And if I have to show chivalry to every woman, including a prostitute, every woman, including white and Jewish women, have to respect my office of authority as a man. Are you prepared to do that? No, you're not. So I don't think chivalry is necessary anymore. This is the math that I understand. Okay? So young men, I want you to, today, don't read the Bible if you don't want to. But don't close the door on God's ability to speak to you through unorthodox means. Okay? God, whatever the fuck his name is, the creator of this cosmos, is much more powerful than you understand. And he is far more capable. He can speak to you through a label on a Lysol container. Okay? So again, take the good, like Bruce Lee said, accept what is useful, reject what is useless. Okay? Anything can be used for the Creator to communicate with you. And I hope that some communication happened within this small conversation. Don't let a girl from middle school break your heart. Okay? You're short, your dick is smaller than somebody else's, you nutted prematurely. These are the main things, right? And you don't have money. I've been told all four of those things. I'm still here. Okay? And Hero looks pretty good. Texas Movement looks pretty good. I'm running faster than ever. The spikes are awesome. You know what I mean? Could I use a little bit more walk around money? Absolutely. But what I invested in, I'm very, very happy with it. And it was for you. Okay? I needed somebody when I was younger. They weren't there for me in the ways that I needed. And that made me pretty sad. But the Creator gave me enough to make something happen. And we have the seeds of that now. Okay? So we're going through a bit of a frustrating time as far as, our potency, our ability to make our name for this world. I recognize that. But it's not hopeless. Okay? You've got all the tools you need. If you've got a phone, if you've got a Wi-Fi connection, trust me, you have more resources than anybody else in history has ever had. Use it not just to entertain your anger. Use it not just to look at pornography. I recognize, I should say this, okay? Guys, if you're in the church community and you're struggling with pornography, it's not the end of the world. Is it the best use of your time? Probably not, okay? It's a way for you to waste seed. And you know how you feel after you're done. You're tired, you're lethargic. You don't want to contribute anything. You don't want to create anything because that's your life force that you gave away, okay? Don't spend your life force in tissues and socks, okay? And, as Big Boy said, don't miscalculate, the next to the last pump either. Find your conscience today, okay? Clear out some of the garbage. And I promise you that if you are willing to put in that small amount of effort for yourself, most of you are broke anyway, so you don't have anything better to do. So if you are willing to make that sacrifice, I think a lot of your anger will diminish. I think a lot of your self-esteem issues will diminish. Someone's always going to be taller than you. Someone's always going to have a bigger dick than you. Someone's always going to have more money than you. Period. End of story. Okay? Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. Right? There's not very many tools the enemy has to destroy your self-esteem. But all of you, every single one of you has an individual gift, just like the gifts that I have. Okay? Am I 6'6"? No. I haven't been able to dunk yet. I'm working on, I haven't even hit the times I wanted to hit on the track. Okay? I'm impotent in a number of different ways. But there's still enough peace in my heart to know that I'm on the right track. And I want you to also feel that way. Okay? That's what Hero's about. I want every piece of Hero attire to give that same level of inspiration. So, that wasn't a sales pitch. I don't care if I'm the only customer of Hero. I make this shit mostly for me. And if you feel like it speaks to you, I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I'd love for you to be an affiliate. And we're trying to launch that as quickly as we can. But I love you. I want you to know that I'm praying for you. And seriously, I'm not, just haphazardly saying that. I do want the creator of the universe to speak to you individually, and I want him to reveal to you what your unique gifts are, what your unique contribution to the kingdom needs to be. And I want to serve you in whatever way is possible for that through Texas Movement International. So have a wonderful day. That's all for today. I think I overdid it, but I'm happy to spend time with you, and I hope that the best comes to you today. All right. Be blessed.